Now for this lecture, we're going to talk about how would we plot the shadow if the distant light, in this case, the sun is behind the viewer. So previously, we've already talked about the first type of shadow, which is parallel to the horizon line or picture plane. And then the second type of shadow is if the light source is in front of the viewer. For this one, it's going to be behind the viewer. The first thing that we need to determine is where you would like the shadow direction to be. I'll explain to you the basic concept of this. Of course, you would have the pole sticking out from the ground. Determine first where what sort of angle that you want your sun to be coming in. Say it's the light direction going there. That sort of gives us that triangle. We can call this as light plane. We can imagine that the light plane is like these thin slices of light, segmented, very thin, that they do not have any sort of width. So this is the shadow direction for this. Of course, the light source is really far away, and actually they're not supposed to be on paper, but this is the light direction. So for this type of shadow casting, the light source or the point of the light is not normally seen. So the sun or direction light is coming from behind you or to a certain side. So this is the basic theory of this. And now let's apply it onto our model. The simplest way to do this is first determine, of course, where our shadow vanishing point is supposed to be. So you could determine this by going and designate that as your shadow direction VP or vanishing point. And of course, we first need to determine where the vertical lines or edges are supposed to be with blue. That's where we can determine where the shadow direction line is originating from and towards the shadow direction vanishing point. Okay, to simplify this explanation further, let's call this light plane as the light plane triangle. Now we want to first incorporate that or determine where that is here on one of the vertical lines. So we need to sketch out this first, the light plane triangle onto our perspective drawing. Now we need to determine first how much angle you want your sun is coming from. So in this case, I'm going to choose something like a 30 degree or 60 degree angle. So it touches that. So this is my light direction. And it, of course, intersects with our shadow line. So once you've done this, you now have this triangle, which is the light plane triangle. This is important for us to note because this sort of plotting is a bit more complex than the first two, because we need to kind of have an inverted light source vanishing point. Is from your shadow direction vanishing point, you draw a vertical line, and you'll be extending this light direction line until it hits this vertical line from the shadow direction vanishing point. And this becomes now your inverted light source VP, because this is important for us to determine now the intersection, or where this point's shadow is going to be, where it's supposed to located. So now we can determine the light direction for this point from the inverted light source vanishing point going towards this point. So we draw a straight line and do it like that. So where it intersects with the shadow line here, that now becomes your point of a shadow point, where this is. You're wondering why this is important. Is because now you have a pinpoint location of where that point is and where this point is, so that you can cast the shadow cast for this edge over to this side. And now you can shade the shadow. What if there's an extra volume here somewhere on the middle, like this? And using the principles of shadow casting, so this extra set of volume above the original structure still follows the vanishing points for your shadow direction vanishing point and inverted light source vanishing point. All of this. So how would you now determine this shadow casting of this extra volume onto the ground? Where basically you need to imagine this as extended all the way back to the ground. Now, once you've illustrated this in imagination, now you could plot first where the shadow line of this volume is coming from. It comes from the ground point, from the ground level. So here, I'm just going to plot where the shadow direction line is for this. And even from this, for this edge, going that way. Now, I'm going to follow, of course, the inverted light source vanishing point. And originating, of course, from here to the vertical topmost point of this. And this will intersect, of course, with the shadow direction line of this tall volume. And therefore, make a point there. And then the same way, you can determine, of course, where the point, you can plot the point for this edge here. Okay, so the vertical edge for this volume is here until there, somewhere there. And then I can now plot the inverted light source so that when it hits the shadow direction line, it gives me that point. And therefore, you can plot, of course, the shadow casting for that edge behind this volume, which is here. And of course, that line follows the vanishing point. And now that results in this shadow casting for that top volume. And what about the shadow casting from here? Now again, follow the shadow direction vanishing point, originate from there, draw that line, and now that results to that. So this ends the lecture for this type of shadow casting, which is if the light is coming from the behind the viewer's side.